right, 22 long rifle for self-defense, and what I have today is our Federal Punch 29 grain. This is rated at 1,000 feet per second out of a 2-inch barrel, and I did test it in my 4 3/4 inch Heritage Rough Rider revolver, but like a lot of people are saying, and I agree with, it's not really a practical thing. So they wanted to see something like this tested and a little short barrel. So I have my 2.4 inch barrel Beretta Bobcat we're going to test it through. This is rated at 1,000 feet per second out of a 2-inch barrel. It's 2.4 inch. I'm thinking they might mean like a 2-inch revolver barrel. I'm not really sure, but I was getting to thinking here. Okay, pretty cool round here. It's basically a semi-wad cutter. What better to compare that to something else than another semi-wad cutter, 38 Special. It's basically the same design here. You know, you got your semi-wad cutter flat nose type thing going on here. And why 38 Special is basically because even though these are a little bit different in size, they kind of fill the same role. This is typically a backup gun or a pocket gun, and so is our little Beretta here. However, our Beretta is really, really tiny. If we look at it up here, it's just, it is so tiny compared to that revolver. But it's still like a pocket gun or an ankle gun, which I did carry it that way today on my ankle as a little backup. I just carried these out here today with my normal carry ammo. I thought that would be kind of interesting to do that. So what we're going to do is we are going to go through the chronograph. We're going to see what kind of velocity and accuracy we get at the same time. And then we're going to just do our basic ballistic test here. And even though these are not expanding, I am going to use 4 layers of denim because, you know, with a 22, you want to put some resistance there. It's going to be a little bit realistic. And then we have 3 inches of clear ballistics, followed by 1/4 inch medium density fiberboard to kind of represent like ribs or sternum. And then we have more gel that's going to represent the rest of a body here. So this should be a pretty fair representation of what we might encounter in a real body. This will be a pretty good representation. So after that, I'm going to shoot from, I think I'll do 25 yards today at my steel gong here. It's not actually a gong, but it's a silhouette. Same type of thing kind of. And it's a full-size ISPC, so that could be practical in some respects because that's probably about the farthest you're ever going to shoot. So anyways, let's get started with the test with our Federal Punch. All right, I am 7 yards from the target, about 6.5 from the chronograph. As you see, this says 82 on the chronograph screen. Good accuracy with the first 5 rounds I fired, but I was not able to get a read because just the way the lighting is today, it's not wanting to pick this up. So let me see if I can get some reads. .749, 780, 761. And I'll try to run a few more rounds here. And this is one thing people don't understand. They'll say something's wrong with my chronograph, and it's not, because I'll run like 1,000 rounds through it without any issue. Maybe not that many, but I've ran 100 through it with no issue. So let me try to get a few more reads. 765. No read. No read. It's just one of these days with that chronograph. Let's move on to the 22 and see if that'll pick up a reading. All right, Beretta Bobcat from 7 yards. See if I can actually get a reading with this Federal Punch. Might be hard to. Oh, didn't beat the next round. .1041. .1041. It's just one of those days. If I have a lot more sunlight, I'll get every read, no issue. If it's a little bit overcast and I don't have my lights on, which I don't because they're not working for some reason, you know, got some issues. But considering 2 of those were the same, I'm going to take that. So we had close to the same velocities we got in that revolver with a significantly longer barrel. Probably because we have no cylinder gap in this, we did pretty well. So let's move on to our ballistic test and see how these two compare to each other. All right, first up I have the 38 Special lead semi-wad cutter. This will give us a nice benchmark to compare that 22 against. So let's see what we got with this. All right. And I was thinking that would happen, honestly. It went right through this whole thing here. So if we take into consideration, this usually means 2 inches of this, you know, we're like 21 inches. So yeah, that's a lot of penetration. Let me throw a water jug up here and see if we can catch it. Now, I used to do a lot of water jug testing, and it always seemed like a water jug would represent roughly 3 inches of gel. So that's just a number to keep in mind here if we pass through. But let's see what we get. All right, that's interesting because that's a totally different result. It passed through here and it tumbled. Our damage path is at 16, so you know that's about 18 inches if it, you know, we were not using this. That's really, really interesting. So what we want to do is pull this out here, and we want to push this up against here and try to get our quote unquote gut shot. And that should give us kind of a cool idea of what we're working with without fiberboard there. All right, let's do our gut shot here. And we're leaking. So we went all the way through this, impacted the bottom here. We did not impact the next jug after that one, but we impacted this first one. And we did not exit this one, but I don't see a bullet in here. I see what's going on. Came through right here, pushed the damage path through a little bit, and then poked a hole in that jug. So this is going to represent 19 inches, and the other one with the fiberboard represented about 21 inches. However, that's just accounting for the gel. Because it had a damage path beyond the gel enough to punch a hole, I'm going to say that's consistently 21 inches both ways. So that's pretty interesting. Consistent except for that first shot. Let's move on to the 22 and see how that does. All right, Federal punch with our medium density fiberboard. Let's see how this does. All right, so I can see this bullet very clearly. Sometimes the angles don't line up on camera with what I'm saying, just because it's a widescreen, but our bullet is right here. We're at 13 inches. That would represent 15 inches if we take this into consideration as taking away 2 inches of that. So let's move on to it without this and see if that compares to it. All right, no medium density fiberboard. I'm gonna go right below that. And we're just a little bit past 15. I don't see any damage path past it, but we're at 15 and a half. So really consistent here, whether we hit a hard barrier or whether we don't hit a hard barrier. That's quite excellent. And surprising enough, I'm going to say those lead wad cutter hand loads at, you know, mid 700 feet per second, those performed pretty much ideally other than that first shot, because, you know, they both did about 21 inches. So a little bit high, I suppose. on our overall penetration, but not really too much. So let's move on to shooting our accuracy test and see how these two do. All right, 25 yards from the target. Now, while this might not be that practical, I prefer to train for this type of stuff because it's better to have the skill and not need it than to need the skill and not have it. And for the most part, your point of aim and impact at 25 yards is going to be the same as it is at 7 yards, unless you have something weird going on where your animal is so slow, like 400 feet per second, that your muzzle is jumping it up over it or something weird like that. But 25 yards, we have our 38 Special semi-wad cutters. Let's see what I can do. Let's see how that Federal Punch compares to this. All right, Federal Punch 22 long rifle. Let's see what this does from 25 yards. That felt good to me. That felt like really easy to shoot. Let me run some more. All right, I'm gonna run them a little bit faster. I'm gonna get my sight picture on, and then I'm going to pop them off and see if we have any misses. I think I missed a couple. Let me try that with the 38. 38 Special, I'll do the same thing. So a little bit more accurate with the 38 Special, just a little bit. But that's just me because I've had this gun for 2 years. The 22 I've only had for a few weeks, so there's no surprise there. So really what I'm seeing here, first of all, I'm going to say our recoil is definitely different. The 38 Special recoil, even though it's a standard pressure 38 Special and that gun is actually heavier, the recoil I would say is 3 times as much as that 22. And while standard pressure 38 Special doesn't feel like a lot of recoil to most people, that is pretty significant. So that is something to take into consideration. Now, as far as accuracy goes, I'm going to say both are pretty accurate. It's going to be kind of hard to compare these two for accuracy here. What I'm seeing with ballistic performance, though, is the Punch did just fine. And also the 38 Special, while it did overpenetrate just a little bit, I would say in a real world scenario, that's not really something that would come into play because, as we saw, it didn't even do anything but break that water jug. So if it were to pass through a person, probably it'd be moving at like a stone throw speed, not very fast. So I'm going to say both of these did really excellent. Overall, if I had to compare these two, obviously the 38 Special did better, but it's kind of hard for me to look at this and say that the 22 did absolutely terribly because it did not. It did quite well. So considering that we're talking 3 times less recoil and it's still doing almost what the 38's doing, that definitely has its purpose for some people. So did okay. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.